Hey everyone, in today's video I will be ranking all of the best schools in the next update, the Spell Fusion update. Now, in today's video I will be taking into consideration the current meta, what a lot of high rank players are predicting going forward, and the schools that got buffed the most in this update. Now, my last couple of tier lists, my last like 2 or 3, I've actually been pretty spot on. I've probably got like one thing wrong on those tier lists. So I think I'm on a pretty good streak right now. And I know this video is probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to stick with my gut because it has been right as of recently, the past like 6 months. So I'm going to keep that going forward here. And this will be talking about the highest level of play. I'm not really talking about your like lower rank recruit games, or, you know, if you're thinking of doing a cool strat and you might have won a couple of times, or even something in the middle of the rank, right? Like this is pretty much all the schools played to their peak potential. So without further ado, let's get right into things right away. And I'm going to start off with Storm because most people, you know, want to watch me for Storm and what I think about Storm. I think Storm, this update at max level league, which is also what this is rated on, is going to be a high A tier school. Now, Storm, if you're a good player, you're pretty much only going to lose against Ice this update, and that's simply because of how giga busted Ice is going to be this next patch, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. So, we're predicting to see Ice be a very popular and frequently queued school, which will make Storm a little bit worse. But on top of that, Storm is the only school in the game as of this update that actually cannot dual school at 100% efficiency like the 6 other schools. Numerically speaking, that is how it is. To me, those two things are the only things stopping Storm from being S tier right now in this next update. If Storm could equally dual school as efficiently as these 6 other schools in the game, I could honestly easily see the argument for S tier. And I was talking to the devs about this as well, and they're actually very much so on board with making Storm dual school as efficient as the 6 other schools after this update drops. But for right now, I think, you know, like a high A tier is a very, very good spot for Storm. Again, it takes a lot of skill to actually play it at this ceiling. In my opinion, that's good game design, and more schools should be designed like that. Next up, let's do Life. That is the elephant in the room. Life is easily going to be the best school next update. This school has only gotten buffs, 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 buffs. Now, this school is very weird right now because you can play it in 3 different ways. One, you can Jade, and Jading is extremely effective right now. You can even see it in live realm with like good heal counters in the game. If somebody really wants to Jade and, dare I say, kind of knows what they're doing, they can keep most people stuck in that match. But on top of that, you also see the heal counters get significantly worse this update, and you're also seeing plenty of buffs to life healing itself, like the new hippo. So now the counters that you have been using are not going to probably be used anymore because they're just not as good. And you're going to see life get a lot more jading copies, like 4 more hippos, 6 more hippos, which is absolutely insane. On top of that, you can also do a cosplay PvE strat with like blades or traps. Like a lot of people are doing like life with fire or life with myth and just cosplaying and jading at the same time. There's a lot of people doing that right now. You don't have to do that to rank up on a life, but it certainly is easy to do. And then on top of that, the actual life school itself, like playing and like outplaying your opponent with like Goat Monk, Gloomy, and Burrowing Bane and heals is just insane because the counters to dots just got nerfed. The HOTS ones are getting nerfed this update, and life has just gotten better, right? So this school, no matter what you do, whether you Jade, cosplay, or play regular life, it's all just S tier. It's amazing. Next up, let's talk about Myth. Now, this one is going to be a little controversial, but I think Myth kinda is going to fall off a little bit this update. It's still extremely brain dead, and you don't have to be a good player to like win a lot of your matchups, I would say. But I think Myth kind of falls off, and it really depends on the Storm Myth interaction. If Storm can easily beat a Myth this next update, which I'm predicting that they can, I think Myth falls off to like a B plus tier, a high B tier actually. And the reason I say this is the same reason why I said that Ice is bad for the past like year, is because your counter matchups are really, really oppressive. Like life is going to be OP, that hurts Myth. Fire, as you know, longer time has gone on, fires have kind of adapted on how to beat a myth now. So fires can beat a myth if they know what they're doing. And then on top of that, if Storm can, you know, reliably beat Myth, that's going to make Myth not that good because that's 3 out of 7 schools that basically counter you in the game. So in my opinion, I still think Myth is extremely brain dead and you can rank up if you are a good player. But in terms of skill ceiling, I think it's kind of fallen off a little bit, unfortunately. And I'm predicting it to be B tier in the next update. Now, if Myth can still easily beat Storm, like it kind of can in Live Realm, in my opinion, I haven't lost to a single Storm on my Myth. I think I did once when chat literally made me that, like, pass for 3 rounds, but I'm not counting that, you know? But if Myth can still safely beat Storm, I'd still probably put it behind Storm a little bit, but I'd tie it in A tier. But again, my gut's telling me Storm's going to beat Myth this update with their card buffs. So, B tier. Next up, let's do Death. Now, I think Death actually got a lot of good buffs this update, and I don't see anybody talking about it really. But after the Drain nerf, a lot of deaths fell off, obviously, because a lot of people didn't know how to play the game actually. But the devs are actually buffing it this update, which I think is really good. Also, you have to consider the queue is going to be a lot of storms, a lot of lives, which Death naturally counters, which is good for them in the next update. So I don't think Death is a D tier school anymore. I think in this next meta, it's going to still be C tier. It's still the worst school. I want to make that clear. But you now have Catch of the Day on a Death with the Anubis spell. Doesn't require School Pip. You got a really good 7 pip heal counter as well. And just the fact that you have a Catch of the Day on a Death now, I don't think people realize, but Death is actually going to be able to fight up against Myth now with this new Catch of the Day spell. And keep in mind, if you Catch of the Day into a Poison, which is a banned spell, because Shift is now banned, Death can actually have a good chance against Myth, and I don't see anybody talking about this, right? So I think Death is still probably going to be the worst school. That Catch of the Day Poison combo might put it up to like low B tier. Still the worst school in my opinion, but I'm predicting it to be C tier because the school still could use a little bit more help. Balance. I'm going to put Balance in low A tier. Now, Balance I thought was going to fall off to like B or C until I saw the new spells with like the Chameleon. Basically, the Chameleon is going to make Balance extremely busted. You have Scales, you have like Stabilize now. You have a lot of good utilities like Samurai, Lore, Judgment is still in the game. That's probably going to get banned pretty soon. There's an X-Pip spell, and it's above damage per pip. But yeah, I think Balance at the ceiling will still be a really good school. I don't think it's just going to be like an auto-win school anymore. It's going to actually make the player have to require some skill to win their games, unlike it was in the past like 3 years in 5th Age, which I think is good. But I don't think it's like better than Storm or like up there with Life this update. I think it's just a good school all around if you're a good player. Next up, let's talk about Fire. Now, Fire is in a weird spot right now. Fire is like this might be a hot take, but I think Fire is the weirdest school in the game right now. And the reason I say that is because Fire is like really good, but at the same time, it's like really awkward when you get countered. You know what I mean? So I'm not really sure where to put Fire. I've seen people say like S, like honestly everything, like S, A, B, C. So I think for that reason alone, and off of my experience, I'm gonna put Fire like somewhere in the middle. I think Fire is probably gonna be a little behind Myth, just because Storm and Life is gonna be queued actively, right? But Fire is like good where it's at right now. Right, like one fire buff, like simply bringing back Sun Serpent or Sun Owl will easily make the school like S and A tier again, right? So it's one good buff away from being a top 3 school in the game right now. So a lot like Storm in a way, Fire is like a skill school. Like if you know what you're doing, you pace yourself well, you know how to punish mistakes, you can easily do pretty good. I just think Fire is kind of in an awkward spot right now because if people don't counter your overtimes, you just win. But if they spam counters, you just kind of sit there like, what am I doing? All right, now the last and certainly the most controversial one. I think Ice is going to be S tier. Now, everyone's going to think I'm crazy here. and they have for the past year, even though I've brought up data in every one of my tier lists. But essentially, ice has not been bad for as long as you guys are making it out to be. The reason ice is bad is because 4 out of 7 schools in the game countered ice. It was never because ice was bad. Okay? Now, there's a lot of things that are going into this update. I think ice is getting 6 or 7 buffs this update on top of the stuff they already have, like, you know, the blimp pet, which breaks the rules, and frostbite, which is a banned spell. It's just getting more. And then on top of that, you have the best fusions in the game this update. You have like 3 or 4 good fusions that are all like equally viable. They're all insane. The only thing ice doesn't have is dual school, but technically everyone in the game is supposed to only dual school with one school, right? So if that's your only flaw on an ice, the school is not going to be bad. However, I think because jading is going to be a problem, I think you could probably see ice drop down to A tier. But the second that jading is fixed, y'all, I'm telling you, ice is going to be the best school in the game. And the reason this is the case is simply because a good ice can give their counter matchups a good run for their money. Are you favored to win those matchups? Absolutely not. But if you pace yourself well and you play well, you could definitely be the fire. You could definitely be the myth. The only issue with that is, again, it's hard to get storm and fire accuracy on an ice. But technically, everyone is supposed to suffer from that in the game. That's just how the game is designed, right? Again, I think it would only be held in check by Jades this update. So I am going to knock it down to high A tier for that reason. But once jading is fixed, ice is easily going to be the best school in the game. And then storm will probably be second, you know. But with how the queue is going to be and predicting to be right now, I think it's probably going to look like something like this. I think easily life, ice, storm, life, storm, ice are going to be top 3 next update. And I find it really funny because I feel like there's so much hate online for like ice, and there's also a lot of people who are like, oh, ice is like the worst school, when death has been the worst school for quite some time now. The issue is, I think, is people just haven't had to try a lot on an ice in the past, and now that you actually have to be a good player and put in a lot of effort to win on ice, similar to like fire and storm, for example, or even death now, honestly. A lot of people are just crying because they can't win and just they have to think. And that's honestly my kind of conspiracy theory, because like you still see good ice players at a very high rank. You can still watch them. They're really good at the game. And honestly, I'm happy that ice has kind of become a skill school in a way. I am happy for it, but I do think it is going to need some nerfs with frostbite, which is inevitable to go. It's already banned in the side. And the devs have literally talked about banning it. Like, I literally talked to a dev, and they said they thought frostbite and poison were banned. Then also blimp is just not fair. I don't really need to explain that to you. One school getting 2 copies when everyone else has 1, simply just not fair, right? So, if they do want to nerf ice in the future, they should start with banning bite, because it doesn't follow the rules, and you already know that. You thought you banned it, but you didn't. And on top of that, blimp is just unfair. So I would start there and not actually attack like Ice's spells and library, right? Just make the game fair and balanced. So yeah, that's my tier list. Again, it's going to be a little controversial probably because of the ice spots, but I think that is honestly pretty accurate. That's my predictions for the next update. Let me know your tier list down there in the comments below, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for watching, and take care.